Sometimes love isn't enough. As an adoptive mom, people would often say this to me, as if to imply I couldn't love my son enough to change behaviors or heal his trauma, so I should probably just give up. At least that's how I took those four powerful words, which had buried themselves deeply in my mind, leading me to doubt my ability to parent my child. Sometimes love isn't enough. That is the truth. Oftentimes, you need love and powerful, personalized tools to raise a child who's experienced trauma and disrupted attachment, or a child who you're struggling to connect with. I am on a mission to help parents raising kids with a tricky past to show up with unconditional love and practical tools to lovingly manage even the most challenging of times. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Plus, if you like what you hear, I'd love for you to leave a review. Now let's get to the good stuff. Welcome back to Sometimes Love Isn't Enough. I am your host, Angie Grandt, and for the past couple of episodes, we've been talking quite a bit about regulation. And I'm doing this on purpose. I think a lot about regulation. I see it all around me. Well, let me rephrase that. I see dysregulation all around me. For a whole slew of reasons. As a society, there's a lot of dysregulation. Between the pandemic a few years ago that is still lingering, that has created this high level of stress and anxiety, not only for our physical health, but it's also impacted people's jobs, where they live, family dynamics. It's impacted the way that we shop and get our groceries. In addition to that, there are things happening politically that can have a huge impact on how regulated we are or how dysregulated we are. And in a soon upcoming episode, I'm going to be talking about some big changes that are coming energetically that are having huge impacts on that as well. But for this episode, and I talk about dysregulation because when so many people are dysregulated, when our kids are dysregulated, when parents are dysregulated, when our boss is dysregulated, our spouse is dysregulated, when so many people are dysregulated, it's really hard to function. It's hard to get things done when we're in this high arousal state, when our nervous system is dysregulated. It has such an impact on all areas of life, and it makes it hard to move forward. Right? I'm a mindset coach, and my goal is to help people create the future that they want. My goal is to help parents in particular who are struggling with their kids to create a life that they love. I want to help parents to enjoy their time with their kids, look forward to their future, and to not dread the next meltdown, not dread the next call from school. My goal is to help to completely flip that upside down on its head. And when our kids are dysregulated and us parents are dysregulated, it's really hard to do. And it's really hard to even see that it is a possibility. Today, though, so the last couple of episodes, I've talked about some really practical things related to, the first one I talked about a couple of weeks ago was about some really practical ways to regulate. Some things that you can do in the moment to help regulate yourself, regulate your kids. The last episode, we talked about the steps of, right, we want to help teach our kids. So we talked about regulate, then relate, then reason, based on the work of Dr. Bruce Perry. Today, I want to pull it together with this concept of lovability. So several episodes, quite a few now, episodes ago, I talked about lovability. And I want to bring that back in today because it is at the core of the human experience. As humans, we need love. We need to feel loved. We need to be able to give love. There are research studies that show that, very sadly, but orphans who receive the necessary food and bathing and diapering and warmth and shelter, but they don't receive love, they perish. We as humans are designed to love and to give love and to receive love. We're designed to be completely and perfectly lovable. But in our human experience, there are so many things that can and do happen along the way that cause us to question our lovability, that cause us to question whether or not we're worthy of love. And these can be things that are obvious, right? Abuse, neglect, divorce, um, you know, um, all kinds of really obvious things that can cause us to question our lovability. But there are actually quite a few other things that happen in regular everyday life without those extremes that can cause us to question our lovability. And when we are questioning our lovability, it is extremely hard to be regulated. If you take a pause and reflect on your own self or somebody that you're close to, and reflect on your rating of how lovable you feel or how worthy you feel of love. Worthy of love from people in your direct family, maybe your significant other or your kids. How worthy you feel of love with your parents or grandparents or extended family. When you reflect on how lovable or worthy you feel of love with the people in your community or in your place of employment, at society in whole, or even in your connection with source, and whether or not you feel that true unconditional love. When we take a step back and really reflect on how we would rate ourselves, if we want to be practical here, that tends to be my go-to. It's in my design. But if we were to rate on a scale of 1 to 10, one being, you know, not lovable, not worthy of pure unconditional love from others, and 10 being so worthy of just full, pure love from everybody, where would you rate yourself? Because chances are most of us won't rate ourselves a 10 or even a 9 or maybe even an 8 or a 7. There's a really good chance that you rate yourself, your worthiness of love, not so high on the scale. Because things have happened in our life, whether, like I said, those extreme traumas or even smaller things. I've shared this a bit, but knowing what I know now about human design and our energy needs, my parents didn't know my energy needs. I didn't know my kids' energy needs. There were things that happened in my life in the way that I was parented. There are things that happened in my kids' lives in the way that I parented them that could easily cause a person to question their lovability. And I'm not saying that in an accusatory way or saying that, even when we're the best parents that we know how to be, even when we are showing up 100% fully present for our kids, there can easily be things that can cause us to question our lovability. I had shared in the past that I am a generator energy type, which means I love work. I work all the time. I always, for as long as I have been old enough to work, I've always had more than one job or job type. I've always been working on something big outside of work, always. It's who I am. It is the energy type that I have. But neither of my kids have that energy type. Neither of my kids are designed to work a 9 to 5 job. They're not designed to have consistent access to energy to do work in the way that I do. And so just by being their mom and being me and having the energy that I do, had the potential to cause both of my kids to question their own lovability, to question their worthiness because they're not like me. They don't have the same energy. And I can see the more that I learn about human design, how easy it would be for my kids to think that they're less than. I don't think that they're less than, but it's easy for them to feel that way. And it's easy for a parent to look at our kids who maybe don't have the same energy type as us, even when we know nothing about human design. It can be so easy to look at our kids as maybe not fulfilling our expectations or fulfilling what we think is their potential, when in fact we might be totally off mark about what their potential is. So, my purpose of this episode today is to revisit that concept of lovability and talk about its connection with regulation, right? When we're in this state where we're not sure that we're worthy of love, we're questioning our lovability. When we're in this state of maybe rating our lovability lower than a 10, we're not able to be fully present, to be fully regulated, because we're in this space where we're questioning our worthiness. We're in this space where we might feel uncertain or worried or scared or taking action that isn't aligned with who we really are because we're trying so hard to prove our love worthiness. I know in studying the things that I've been studying over the past year or so that when we're struggling with our worthiness, our love ability, it has an impact on our body too. There's a direct connection between our sense of lovability and our cardiovascular system, and our ability to manage our weight or have a good body image. When we struggle with our own lovability, it can have an impact on our liver, on our blood. It can have an influence on things like depression, anxiety, being fearful of being rejected, or being afraid to truly be ourselves. And although when I talk about being afraid to truly be ourselves, right, that isn't the same kind of fear that comes when maybe we're in the woods and we hear, we think we're alone, or maybe we're with one person, but we can see and hear what they're doing, and we hear maybe a snap of a stick in the woods, right? That can create a real fear response in us, a visceral fear that, oh dear, what else is out here in the woods, right? But our body doesn't actually know the difference between real fear, perceived fear. When we think about that snap of the stick in the woods, and instantly our body goes into this high arousal state, like, oh no, there might be a bear or something else, and we're going to have to be ready to run. Our body doesn't actually know if there is a bear or there isn't a bear. I think I've shared examples in the past, like if you were in the woods and you saw somebody in a bear costume, but you couldn't clearly distinguish whether it was a costume or a bear, your body would have the same reaction, real bear or not, right? You're designed to have this fear response that creates a physiological change in your body. But the same is true for all of our fears. We have these bizarre fears that are part of the human experience that are not part of all mammals, right? We have fear of rejection or fear of the past, fear of the future. We have all of these fears, but our body responds to all of these fears in the same way. When we're living in this place of fear, it has an impact on the hormones that are racing through our body. It has an impact on how that back part of our brain is firing or not firing. And when we're living in this space of fear, fear of rejection, fear that we're not worthy of love, it has the same impact on our body. And it leaves us in a space where we're dysregulated. So, what do we do about that, right? If this is our experience, that we've experienced things in our life, even in the best of circumstances, most of us have experienced things that cause us to question our lovability. Question again, like I said, our lovability in our close-knit family, to our extended family, to our society, to even bigger than that. That is the human experience. And when we've experienced things that cause us to question our lovability, it has an impact on our regulation or dysregulation, like I said. So what do we do about that? Well, we have to target that sense of lovability. The more that I learn about human design, the more that I learn about how to support the people that I'm serving. And I think about this impact of lovability and how it impacts all of us. I think if you were to say like I don't struggle with lovability, I think I'm totally lovable. I would love to meet you because it is the human experience. So when we have this as part of our foundation, where we have this unstable sense of lovability, like I said, it is linked to our fear response. It is linked to dysregulation. There are key things that we can do to help move ourselves towards a greater sense of love worthiness, a greater sense of lovability. So what are those things? Well, I I say this wholeheartedly that understanding our human design is the first key step. Because the premise of human design is that when we are born, we are all born perfectly designed to fulfill our purpose. We are all born perfect. We're born capable of loving, capable of receiving love, capable of giving love. That is how we are born on this planet. It's in our design, it's in everybody's design. We're all born precious and perfect. And life happens that takes us off of that path. When we understand our human design, when we understand what our baseline is and how to get back to that, we understand what parts of our energy led us astray from totally embracing our lovability. When we understand what our baseline is and what our lesson plan, what our unique blueprint, whatever you want to call it, when we understand what we're here to do on this planet and how our energy is designed to help us interact with the people in our life and to fulfill our purpose, when we understand that, then we have this increased awareness and we have this power. We're empowered to to have that awareness to say like, oh, I understand now why I'm questioning my lovability when it comes to my energy, right? I, at a very basic level, for example, understanding my energy type as a generator and my kid's energy type as a projector has had a profound impact, not only on how I view myself and how I view my kids, but also how I show up for my kids, how I acknowledge and recognize and allow them to be who they are instead of me trying to fit my square peg kids into this round hole of a generator that I have in my mind about how kids should be. And before knowing human design, I always felt like I was a very flexible thinker. I think it is something that I take a lot of pride in. I don't tend to see things as black and white or just one way. But when I didn't know that we had different energy types, I knew my kids were unique. I knew they had unique life experiences that were different than mine. But when I look at my kids, my daughter is genetically similar to me. My son is not because he's adopted. But when I look at my kids, now through this lens of having this awareness of their unique needs, I show up for them differently. I encourage them differently. I support them differently. I ask for their advice instead of giving it to them because they're designed to advise the rest of the world. And showing up for them in that way has an impact on their sense of lovability because I know things about them that I didn't know about them before. And so, in wrapping up this concept of really understanding and even just even just if you start first by just that scale that I talked about, just looking at how do you view your own lovability, your own worthiness of love? Start there. Because if your score isn't a 10, then I'd love to help you. I'd love to help you by helping you understand your human design if that's where you're at. If you already know your human design, then dig into it. Understand where, especially your G center, your sense of lovability and direction, understand what's going on in your G center. Are you open? Are you defined? Are you more susceptible to the energy of others? Do you have your own consistent energy? Is part of your life's lesson plan in your G center? Because understanding that about yourself can be really powerful in helping you to move the needle, move that score up the scale of your lovability. Because when you can really step fully into how very lovable you are, you'll be more regulated. You'll be better able to show up for your kids. You'll be in such a better position to take care of you so that when your kids need you to have a full cup, your cup is already full. So I hope that you found this episode so powerful. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Please connect with me. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I want to make sure that these episodes are on track for you and that they're making a difference in your life. So that's it. Take care. Talk soon. I hope that you found this episode so incredibly powerful. Thank you for joining us for Sometimes Love Isn't Enough. If you resonated with what you heard here, please subscribe to this podcast and give us a review. You can also follow us on all the socials. Check the show notes for all the details about how to start tackling behaviors and creating a powerful, loving relationship with your child, a child who needs your love the most. And if your gut's telling you that it's time for a change now, book a free consult. I'd love to help you love unconditionally and show you that you have that power within you.